Hakadosh, good morning. I hope all is well. I wanted to share with you a very interesting idea. There's a concept to do with this week's parasha, which is Parashat Hukat, which has to do with Tum'ah v'Tahara, purity and impurity. The shiur be'ezrat Hashem is going to be Leilun Yishma Lilian Bat Bachye, She'nishmata tzor b'tzor chayim amen. So the question that we ask ourselves is, what is this concept exactly? What's going on? Right? So we know that there's a whole question to do with Kivre Tzadikim. Is Kivre Tzadikim metamim or not? Meaning, can a Kohen now go to a Kivre Tzadikim? Imagine a Kohen wants to go to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, right? To Mimi Balanes, to the Rambam, to Kivre Tzadikim. Can he go to Kivre Tzadikim? So that's question number one. Question number two, what about Kivre Ovdei Kochavim? A non-Jewish cemetery. Is it metameh or not? So when we're going to understand what exactly is going on, there's going to be machlokot going back and forth, but according to the Zohar and the Midrashim, Kivre Tzadikim, even though it appears that there's nothing, so we have to understand, what does that mean? So it actually comes out that Shimon Bar Yochai holds Kivre Tzadikim, Kivre Goyim, are not metamim be'ohel. Meaning a kever of a goy is not metameh with the oil, with a tent. So he says, where does it come from? From our parasha. Because it says, right, Zot Torah Adam ki yamut be'ohel, and it says, Ve'etzoni tzomar iti Adam atem kruim Adam, ve'en ovdei kochavim kruim Adam. You guys are called an Adam, but they are not called Adam. And since they are not called Adam, so therefore that's why you guys are metamim be'ohel, right? And not the other one. Okay? So now we have to understand to do with the Kivre Akum. The Kvarim of non-Jews, are they mitameh or not mitameh? So b'derech klal, we always say that Yachiv Rabim Alachak Rabim. There's an individual, there's a lot of people, meaning, right? So therefore there's Rabbanan. And so he says over here, that's Tosafot. Tosafot says, Alachazak Rabbanan, that Kivre Akum is mitameim be'ohel. What that means, it is mitameh, meaning the exact same thing. A kever of a non-Jew is mitameh be'ohel. That is Shitat Rabbanan, and that's how Tosafot paskins. Yachiv Rabim Alachak Rabim. But the Rambam paskins like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Kivre Akum is not mitameh be'ohel. Now the question is, where does the Rambam come from? Right? So it comes out that Ravina paskins like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and maybe that's why. But there's another Mekor also. The Gemara says in Metzia Kuf Yudalad Amubet, it was a story that Rabbi Baravua came and he found Eliyahu Navi in the Bet HaKvarot of the non-Jews. So he sees Eliyahu Navi and he tells him, one second, Eliyahu, you're not a Kohen? What's going on? You're a Kohen. So what are you doing in the Bet HaKvarot? You're Eliyahu Navi, but Eliyahu Navi is a Kohen. So what are you doing here? He answered him, you didn't learn Tarot? In Tarot, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai comes and he says, Kvarim shel Akum are no metamim. And he brings the pasuk, Atem kruim Adam. So therefore, Eliyahu Navi comes and he tells Rabbi Avua, what's the problem? There's no problem. So how's Eliyahu Navi being posek? Like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. So there's no problem. So he comes and he says, so maybe that's the Rambam. But Tosafot comes and he says, but you can't bring a proof from there. Why? Because it could be that maybe Be'emet he was just pushing him off. And there's also actually a midrash that Rav Akiva Eiger comes and he tells us, where's this midrash? The midrash says, it's a Yalkut Shimonia Mishle on Chachmat Nashim Banta Beta. Eliyahu Navi was bearing Rabbi Akiva. Remember, Rabbi Akiva was killed, right, by the Romans. This is one of the 10 martyrs. Okay? So the Romans came and they killed him with a very strange death. Eliyahu Navi comes and he's going to bury him. They come and they say to him, but you're a Kohen. Now again, so what does he say? He says, no. He says, why? He says, emetamin, tzadikim are not metamin. So here you have it that Eliyahu Navi is saying, I'm burying Rabbi Akiva, but he's a tzaddik, and tzaddikim are not metamim. So says the Tosafot, there's just pushing him off. He's not really Be'emet saying that Be'emet tzaddikim are not metamim. He was trying to push him off. And he says, and he was more than that even. You know why he was pushing him off? Because since he was killed by the government, so therefore they were afraid. People were afraid to even touch him because he was killed by the government. So for Eliyahu Navi bichvodo ve'atzmo, he himself came and he buried Rabbi Akiva. But you see from here, maybe he was just trying to push it off. So we have to actually understand, what is it? Is it stam, just like that? Where's the fuente? Where's the source that really behemet of what we're talking about now. So listen to the Ramban. Nachmanadis. The Ramban says, what is the concept of tumat met? What is the concept that when a person passes away, they become tameh, impure? So he says, tumat met comes because of the nachash. The nachash, the snake, the serpent. Why? He says, these people, they die because of the nachash. And therefore, just like the nachash had tum'ah, that tum'ah is in the malach hamavet. So says Ramban, so therefore, when the malach hamavet comes and he kills someone, so therefore he places this tum'ah on the human being. And that's where we get tumat met. But he says that Ramban, if somebody passes away with mitat neshika, this week's parasha, mitat neshika, whether it's Miriam or Aharon, right? We were just doing in Daf Yomi, Batra, who died by mitat neshika? Aharon HaKohen, Moshe Rabbeinu, and Miriam Neviah also. So he says, the ones that died by mitat neshika, lo yitamu min hadin, they shouldn't be mitameh. And that's the pshat that we say, tzadikim are not going to be mitamim. Why? Because if they don't die with the malach hamavet, so therefore what happens? There's no problem whatsoever. There's no tumah. Now, the truth is though, right? This is a pele, what the Ramban is saying. Because we're trying to say whether they're mitameh or not tameh, right? Or you really, it could be they're really kivre tzadikim or not mitamim or not. But the mekor of the Ramban, Nachmanadis, actually comes from the Zohar HaKadosh. The Zohar HaKadosh says, the Bilazar says, anybody that learns Torah lishma, he will not die through the Yetzer Hara, which is the Nachash, which is the Malach HaMavet, but rather he will die with the kiss of death. As it says in Shira Shirim, Yishakeni Nishkopiu, which means that Hashem will come and give him a kiss of death. That the Neshika comes and it attaches itself to the Neshama and it takes it. And he says that this person that comes and he's strengthening himself with the tree of life and he's not letting go of it. So therefore he's going to have this. And therefore tzadikim that they're learning Torah, their bodies do not become tameh, they're tahor. And just like Eliyahu Navi that we found him by the Kivre tzadikim. Why? But tzadikim are not going to be mitameh, mitatam. So therefore it comes out that the Zohar HaKadosh is like the Midrash, which is brought down. That really be'emet, Eliyahu Navi was not tzadikim. Why? Because there's no tumat met. And therefore there's no problem whatsoever. And he actually did this l'maaseh. So therefore we have to say, what's going on there? Is it mitameh, not mitameh? What's the inyan of tumah? It's very interesting that the concept of impurity comes already from the Nachash HaKadmoni, this Nachash, the serpent. And since the serpent is the same Malach HaMavet, they come. So what's going on? So let's try to understand. And it starts like this. First Akdama, the first introduction. There's the Khatam Sofer. The Khatam Sofer comes and he says, we see that Eliyahu Navi, he fulfilled the Torah. But sometimes we see that he didn't fulfill the Torah. So what's going on then? So he says what? Eliyahu Navi, right? Does he have to be Mekayim Mitzvot or not? He's an angel. He has fulfilled the Torah or not? So the Khatam Sofer comes and he says this. When he comes in the form of a malach, as an angel, he does not need to fulfill the Torah. But when he comes in the form of a human being, dressed up as a human being, there he does have to fulfill the Torah. Right? And here, Eliyahu Navi, he came like a human being. He was dressed up like a human being and he was bearing Rabbi Akiva. So they asked him, are you not a Kohen? Right? That's why. But, right, but it comes out that even Eliyahu Navi, when he comes as a human being, he's not commanded on the mitzvot. He doesn't need to fulfill the mitzvot. Right? And he says, not like but he does it, which means as if that he's not commanded to do it. What does that mean? What's the nafkamina? So we know there's a beautiful Nefesh Hachayim. Listen to this. The Nefesh Hachayim comes and he's trying to answer up the question of the Ramban. Nachmanadis asked, how did Yaakov Avinu get married to two sisters? How does Yaakov Avinu if he fulfilled the entire Torah, how does he get married to two sisters? It's written in Mefurash of the Torah. You're not allowed to get married to two sisters. He got married to Rachel and Leah. How does he do that? So listen to this. Rav Chaim Volozhiner comes and he says like this. The Avot HaKadoshim, our forefathers, right? They didn't fulfill the Torah because they were commanded to, but they understood the Torah from the roots. And therefore they knew that sometimes they needed to fix up certain things, and they knew what would be destroyed. And therefore, since they knew all these things, says the Nefesh Chaim, there's enough kamina ladina. Somebody that's mekayem the Torah, not because he's commanded to, but only just because he understands the depths of it, he's sometimes allowed to come and do different calculations in order to find out what's better or not better. And therefore, Yaakov Avinu, he made a calculation. He knew that from Rachel, right? And Leah were going to come all of Klal Yisrael. So therefore he took two sisters. Now he says the Nefesh Chaim, but one second, there's not a license. There's not a carte blanche that you could do whatever you want. She says this was before Matan Torah. Before accepting the Torah, we were able to do these calculations and do these things, right? And therefore he comes and he says that you're allowed to do. And if the Torah prohibited, right, something, after Matan Torah, there's no such thing as going against it. Even no matter how much the kilkul, why? En chokhmah ve'en etzav ve'en tvuna. There's no wisdom, there's no logic, no nothing. Meaning before Matan Torah, yes, I could think, should I do it? Should I not do it? What am I gaining? What am I losing? How am I going to gain? How am I going to lose? After Matan Torah, the second that the Torah was given, there's nothing what to talk about. Hashem said it, that's it. That's it. There's nothing what to talk about. There's no discussion. Right? There's no, but I know I have Ruach HaKodesh. No. Doesn't exist. You have to fulfill the Torah. That's it. So he says, Gdolei Olam, they actually fell for this. Great people fell for this. They thought that they could make calculations, and then they fell. They fell because they didn't pass. So he says over here, before Matan Torah, they were able to do these things. And therefore he comes and he says, that's a pshat with Yaakov Avinu. And therefore he says, that's a pshat also of Eliyahu Navi. Even when Eliyahu Navi comes like dressed like a human being, and he's going to be Mekayem the mitzvot, he's being Mekayem the mitzvot like Avot HaKadoshim before Matan Torah. She'eno mitzvah ve'oseh. And therefore he's allowed lo linhog kedine Torah, right? But rather kefia yikara inyanim, like the main thing. And therefore Eliyahu Navi could come and he could bury, even though he's a Kohen. There's no problem. Because this is greater. And he's doing it like he's not commanded to do it. So now we actually understand Bemet. What was the answer of the Ramban Bemet? This is a little bit on the sidetrack. What Bemet was the answer of the Ramban? So he says, Avot kimu Torah only in Eretz Yisrael and not in Chutz La'aretz. That's the answer of the Ramban. Nachmanides says that the forefathers, they only fulfilled the Torah in Eretz Yisrael, not in Chutz La'aretz. Now, that makes sense. Why? That the second that they were getting to Eretz Yisrael, Yaakov's wife, Rachel, died. Because if he would go into Israel, right, and he was now married to two sisters, now it's a problem. So therefore, they were coming in, and that's when she passed away. So he says over here, really, Be'emet, and the answer of the Ramban and the Nefesh HaChaim, even though they're two completely different answers, it's the same yesod. It's the same fundamental concept. So he says like this, what is the reasoning of the Ramban, why they only fulfilled the Torah in Eretz Yisrael? He says, the Ramban says in many, many different places, because the Ikara, the Ma'ala, and the Tikkunim only happen in the land of Israel. Meaning, when we come and we fulfill the mitzvot in Israel, that's when we really fix everything up and we really do everything the way we're supposed to. When we come and we fulfill the mitzvot in Chutz La'aretz, it's only just to remember them. As the Gemara says, even after you guys go to exile, you should still be doing mitzvot, tefillin, mezuzot, in order that it shouldn't be new when you come back to the land of Israel. And that's what it says. It's even Chatzivyonim. He doesn't want us to forget the mitzvot. So it comes out that Eretz Yisrael, since Hakadosh Baruch Hu has his hashkacha directly on the land of Israel, that's when we really come and we fix everything. But in Chutz La'aretz, in the diaspora, we don't do that, right? And therefore, it's not the same thing. So it comes out that really, Be'emet, it's the same answer like the Rav Chaim Volozhin. It's the same concept. That's what he's trying to say. Whether you're going to answer it's because it's in the land of Israel, not land of Israel, or they only fulfilled it that they sometimes saw that there was a bigger tikkun, it comes out it's the same answer, even though it sounds like two completely different answers. Now, what is the second introduction? The second introduction is that dinim de Rabbanan, sometimes when it's the Rabbanan, we sometimes find lo plug, right? But even in a Doraita, there's the no plug. What is lo plug? Lo plug means sometimes we didn't make a differentiation between one thing and another thing. Meaning we left it like a code, that it's went straight, and even if it's not going to be that way, we just left it that way. We wanted it to be uniform. We wanted that everyone should be doing the same thing. So he says like this, right? The most simplest explanation on lo plug in a doraita is to do with the dini of yibum. Even a zekena of 90 years old that she's going to fall in front of a yavam, even though there's no yibum for her. Think about it. What's the entire yibum? You should have a child. A 90-year-old woman, she's going to have a child? Unless her name is Sarah Imenu, she's not going to have a child, right? Or Yocheved, right? She's not going to. So, but what? They still do it in order to permit her. And as a Zekena Batishim, you can't have Mekim Zerachif. And still there's a mitzvah of Yibum, right? And it's going to be permitting of Eshet Ach. So you see here that even by a Doraita, even by a mitzvah Doraita from the Torah, we don't say Lo Plug. There's no difference. One more time. A man dies without a child, right? His wife is obligated to do yibum. What is yibum? She gets married to the brother-in-law, and then she has a child, and that child is instead of the deceased. It's like a gilgul of the deceased. It's a al-shem achiv. Now the question is, a 90-year-old woman cannot come and have a child. So therefore, right? Imagine right now, the brother dies, he's 80 years old, 85, 90, whatever, and now the wife is 90 years old. She has to do yibum. What yibum over here? Kilu, she could have a child? She can have a child. So for what's the entire purpose of yibum? Lo plug. There's no difference. The regular yibum is that in order to have a child, here, even though we know that she's not going to have a child, doesn't matter. Go do it. So now it comes out, we could actually explain the beautiful language of the Ramban, Nachmanadis, and listen to this. He says, to do with tumat met, right? Then to do with Kivre Tzadikim, right? That we started with the Zohar Hakadosh, it's known, right, that the Zohar is not a Sefer Halacha Mamash, but the Zohar is talking about all the different things from the roots, from the depths. That's what the Zohar is, the Kabbalah. It's going all the way down to the roots. Tikunim, Kilkulim. So the Zohar HaKadosh comes and reveals to us that there is a Tum'ah, right, which is basically the Ruach of Tum'ah because of the Yetzirah and the Nachash. Now this is not Shayach to Kivre Tzadikim. By Kivre Tzadikim, there's no Ruach Tum'ah. So why Be'emet? So then why are you not allowed to go to Kivre Tzadikim? Right, now you answer your question, right? You had your father-in-law and your brother-in-law, right? You have, Mr. Dweck and, and Sammy. What do you have over here? Very simple. You know why you're not allowed to go? Lo plug. Meaning, just like you're not allowed to come and go to a regular kever of a Jew, you can't go to Kivre Tzadikim. Because who's going to tell you who's a tzaddik and not? I'm going to tell you to be Shimon Bar Yochai, Rami Balanes. Yeah, but what about maybe Rav Enzino Bashaul, Rav Yosef? You're going to tell me for sure. So yeah, but it's not the same generation. Maybe you're going to tell me, okay, fine, Aaron Cohen. Where are you going to start putting, 1 second, this was a tzaddik amur, not tzaddik amur. Did he die al mitat neshika? How do you know? How do I know? How does anybody know? Lo plug. We don't know. So therefore, you're not allowed to go to any Kivre Tzadikim. Doesn't exist. No going to Kivre Tzadikim. I apologize, Kohanim. No Kivre Tzadikim. And that's the pshat in the Divrei Zohar HaKadosh. He's not talking about halacha lema'aseh. The Zohar is talking about the depths on the ruach of the tumah, not on dinei tumah. He's not talking about the halachot of tumah v'tara. He's talking about the ruach tumah. What happens? Is there tumah or not? But he's not talking about halachot, because it's not his job. So he says that's why he comes and he says that if a person comes and he learns Torah and he goes, there's not going to be ruach tumah anymore. But he's still going to have tumah. Why? Because at the end of the day, right, we're not talking about dinei tumah, and therefore there's nothing to do with it. And that's the pshat of the Nefesh Hahayim, what he said, and the Ramban about Chutzaretz. So by Eliyahu Navi, it's no shayach lo plug. Why? Because Eliyahu Navi is nothing to do with anything else, right? What is lo plug is in with us? We could say, listen, we don't make a differentiation between one thing and another. But Eliyahu Navi doesn't have lo plug. He doesn't have this, so he could do that. And that's the words of the Ramban when the Ramban says, "Teida, you should know, shametim meneshika lo yitamu min adin." Meaning, min adin, they're not metameh because they died with the kiss of death. But what does it mean, min adin? It's like a kavachomer, valodinu. But the Ramban is saying, Kivre Tzadikim, technically speaking, shouldn't be metameh. But really, be'emet, it is metameh only because of lo plug. That's the only reason why be'emet, they are metameh. So according to this now we could understand the pshat in Kivre Akum also as well. Why? Kivre Akum, the kevers of the non-Jews. So he says, Hahayim Hakadosh in our Parashat explains the reason why Kivre Akum is not metameh. You know why? He comes and he says something incredible. He says, imagine right now, I just did this in the Mishmar last night. Look at the video of the Mishmar last night. Incredible. Listen to this mashal. He comes and he says this. If you right now come and you take honey, and you take it outside, a bucket of honey, what's going to happen? Everything's going to run to it. All the creeper crawlers, the bugs, everything. If you're going to take out garbage and you take it outside, you'll have the creepy crawlers and everything, but none of the same. You'll have much more running to the honey, much more than anything else. And that's why last night we spoke about the entire concept of the sakana, of a danger that when you come into a house and you put a mezuzah, you cannot take away the mezuzah afterwards. And the reason why you can't take away mezuzah afterwards is once you put kedusha in the house, and now the mazikim and all these demons and spirits cannot come and attack the house, when you take it away, they're running to attack it. And that's the same reason why by a tumat yoledet. A woman, technically speaking, she has the biggest bracha when she's pregnant. The key of Hashem, that's a key of birth, of childbirth. Hashem is there. All of a sudden she gives birth and she becomes tameh. Why did she become tameh? She just brought birth into the world. She brought bracha in the world. She procreated. Why in the world? The reason why is because she had kiddusha inside of her. And the second that the kiddusha leaves, automatically all the tumah comes running. And that's in essence the exact same thing about the human being. When we Jews come and we're learning Torah and we accepted the Torah, there's so much kiddusha that after a person passes away after 120 and the kiddusha leaves, immediately the tumah comes, and it's a very big, strong tumah. Because since the tumah wasn't able to come at the beginning, it's able to come right now at a much stronger strength, a much stronger force. So he comes and he says, that's the explanation to do with the difference between a Jew and a non-Jew. A Jew is mitameh ba'ohel, even in the entire tent. You could have an entire house, which is a housing complex of hundreds of houses. But on the inside, they're opened to each other. Meaning they're not separated. They're open, but every single one is a separate house. And one person passes away, the entire complex. You could have 100 houses, they're all tameh. Why? Tumat oil of a Jew. But he says none of it a goy. Why? Because the second that a person comes and they have this kiddusha, which in essence is a ma'ala, it's something so great, all of a sudden, once you take that vacuum out, boom, it goes all the way down. And all of a sudden, you have all the tumah coming to it. And that, in essence, is one of the most important yisodot, because last night, the entire concept is that we have an incredible potential, only because, according to our potential, can we maximize our potential. But if not, chas v'shalom, it becomes even worse. Because it's either that we're all the way on the top, or we're all the way in the bottom. That was the concept of last night. So he comes and he says, right? So therefore, he says, that's the pshat to do with a human being, right? When he passes away. And the Rechagav, that's the sod also of the dam nida. Dam nida, a child was supposed to form from this blood, right, of the period. And what happened is that instead of becoming a child, if it didn't grab on and it didn't fertilize to become a child, what happens? The nida, the period comes. So the fact that now we're the losing of a potential of having a Jewish child, that brings tumah. That's why a woman becomes tumah nida. She becomes impure like a nida. Because the second that she had the potential to bring a Jewish child and she didn't, that loss of potential is what brings tumah to the human being. And therefore she becomes tumah nida, which is a very, very powerful, right, kiddusha. And that's why he comes and he says, right, kol nefesh Israelit, any nefesh Israelit, even even this has the power of kiddusha. Even though it didn't form yet, the fact that it could have become a child, that in itself was already kiddusha. And therefore he says that's a pshat also in Shimon Bar Yochai and the Rabbanan that they're modim shemitzad shurat adin. Kivre akum is not mitameh be'oel, right? Just like we brought down in the Hakadosh Hakadosh. But there's a machloket. Do we say lo plug also by that? Meaning that we say, listen, you can't make a differentiation. Lo plug. And since we don't make differentiations, well, they're also prohibited in such a fashion. And I think this is just a beautiful idea, just illustrating to us the importance of what it is, maximizing our potential, right, in this world. Ezrat Hashem.